What's happening?
Nothing. Waking Brian early up on a Wednesday morning.
Yeah, it's early for you, man. What time is it?
7:30.
He's still sleeping.
Yeah,
Caffeine's still kicking in.
I can tell, man. All right, well then, here's what we'll do. I'm gonna just kind of lay out what we're gonna talk about. One, I want to get to know you guys a little bit better, for myself and for everyone else. And
I think you've known us for like 4 years now.
It's been a minute, yeah. Two, I want to talk about scaling operations. I want to talk about this new service model that Brian's got going on. I want to talk about pricing and just all kinds of stuff. Okay, so I want to just kind of start off with Brian, because this will be a great way to wake you up. Brian, what is the name of your company?
iTech Solutions out of San Luis Obispo, California.
All right. And you're the CEO, I assume, is the title you're giving yourself?
I mean, is anyone a true CEO at an MSP, or are you wearing like 100 other hats too? But yeah, CEO.
Okay. And how long have you had your company operating?
Since 2005.
Good for you. And Shiva, your company?
Continuum with a K, not the one with a C like ConnectWise.
Okay.
Been doing IT since early 2000, give or take. Found MSP late in my life, back in 2017-ish, I want to say. Prior to that, just did pure bar stuff. Brian is inspiring me to do a combination of the two that he'll get into later, I'm sure. Yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Cool. Now, I've had both of you guys on in the past as guests, but what I want to do, I want to get to know you guys better, because I like you guys. I consider you friends, and I just learned something today that completely new. So, Shiva, if we look at your name, we can profile here and say you're probably of Indian descent, but you don't like consider India home or anything. So what does your background look like?
Grandparents and great-grandparents, they went to the Caribbean as, I guess, indentured servants back in the early 1900s, just after slavery was abolished. So I call it a new form of slavery. And I was born in Canada. And yeah, I mean, I don't consider myself Indian because I think I'm 2, maybe 3 generations removed. Never been. And I don't know of any family that's over there.
And like indentured servants, like you said, it's like a new form of slavery. I remember learning about it in, I don't know, grade school or something. Whenever they teach you about slavery and Lincoln and all that stuff, right? He made a really good tweet about it once. But
wow, Twitter's that old?
I saw it on the internet, so it has to be true.
That's true.
So I never really looked into indentured slavery or indentured servantry as an adult. It's one of those things where like it has popped in my mind a couple times, and then I think I'm gonna look that up later when I'm bored, and then squirrel. I even have ADD moments when I'm trying to procrastinate. It's that bad, guys. So how bad is it? Like, do you have stories from family they don't talk about anything like that?
I don't have that many stories about it, but other than what we were taught in school, I would liken it to what families try to live off of, what minimum wage is these days. I don't think it's much different. You're working to live. I don't think people live to work I'm sorry, what is it?
You're living to work.
Or work to live.
Yeah, when you live to work, that's when it's bad.
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people are stuck in right now.
I do too, man.
my personal opinion is with inflation the way it is, and the supply chain from the big C, which was COVID or is COVID, as well as what's going on geopolitically, I think we're going to see a big economic contraction very soon. That's not going to be too nice. And Brian's already paying what, $6-7 a gallon for gas?
Don't sign me.
What was that, Brian? $6-7?
I just went on a camping trip and paid $100 in gas there and $100 in gas on the way back.
But let me ask you this. Did you enjoy yourself?
I did. I spent the same amount of money it would have cost to stay in a nice hotel, but at least I got to walk out my front door and not have a hotel hallway.
And that's where it counts. He did probably have a little bit of running water in the camper, right?
Oh yeah, it was. I mean, they had full hookups, so
there you go.
It's glamping.
Yeah, I think if I were going to go camping, it would have to be in a camper. I did camping once as an adult with my wife Nikki, and when we went and did it, it was, I think it was after I started my MSP, and a buddy of ours came, and then like some other friends came, and the buddy ended up staying in like our tent. We had this giant tent. It was like me, Nikki, the dog, and our buddy. And he ended up putting in his headphones and cranking them all the way, and my snoring was still cutting through. It was an experience. I would be okay to never do camping again. I just remember we were floating down the river in one of those like I think it was an inflatable raft. And it was one of those you rent from one of the campgrounds, like the big 12-person kind of raft. And it was me, and I was much skinnier back then. Like, I was 100 pounds less. And it was me and two really big girls in this thing. And we just kept getting stuck. And we had to walk the raft all the way back. It was awful. So I've got this whole day where it was supposed to be like a 1-hour trip down the river, relaxing, enjoyable.
I thought it was just supposed to be a 30-minute tour.
3-hour tour.
A 3-hour tour. Sorry, yeah. There you go.
And then the weather started getting rough because it hadn't rained, so the water level was really low. So
the tiny ship was tossed.
No, the tiny ship just kept getting stuck on the rocks. And what's even funnier is I started on a kayak, right? So I'm on this kayak. I've never been on one before. So they like push it down the ramp, and then my kayak hits the water and I just flip. No idea what I'm doing. So then I'm like, well, now what? And they're like, I don't know. Turn it over and get back in. So now I've got an audience of all these people that are like waiting to get in the water in their ships or whatever you call these little things. And so like I'm struggling to get myself up on, and then I'm finally in the kayak and I'm going, and the kayak gets stuck on a rock. Like that's how low the water is, guys. So now I'm stuck on a rock. I'm down far enough, like I can still see and like shout to the people, but the water's, taking me. So I get out of the kayak, I dislodge it, and then I start going again, and my kayak starts filling up with water and sinking. Apparently when I got it stuck on a rock, I put a big hole in it. Good thing it wasn't mine. So yeah, that entire day was a freaking nightmare. I'll probably never go camping again. And I'm okay with that.
Ladies and gentlemen, the name of this episode is Steve's Camping Trip.
I've never named episodes. It sounds like a good idea.
I just put a number before it.
Yeah.
There.
So Brian, you're from California, and I'm going to say, I'm going to throw you under the bus here. You're in the minority. I know that because everybody keeps voting against you and winning. So you've just got, that whole state is a mystery to me. especially like LA, like the things I hear on other podcasts about LA makes me never want to go there ever.
Yeah, I mean, the things keeping me here are basically the weather and family and friends. I guess my business too, although I could essentially do that remotely if I wanted. Mainly the weather.
I have a question for you. Do you even think an MSP needs a physical office anymore? Other than a place to maybe host meetings, have some inventory if needed, and stage. But like, do you guys really think a IT service provider needs a formal office for people to be in every day?
I think with the right personalities on your staff and the right culture that's designed to stay in touch, even though you're not in the office every day, it can be done. I think the important thing is you don't want employees feeling like they're on an island, right? Like they're not part of the team. And so, you guys, Shiva group that I'm part of is pretty awesome. They've got like a Zoom thing that just runs all day. You could just pop into anytime you want, right? So if you had like that type of culture where it's like, hey, we've got this live Zoom channel, people on the team can pop in anytime they want. There's always someone on it, and you kind of get that feeling that you are, even though you are all remote, you're kind of more of a tight-knit team, right?
I would say that Zoom room got me through COVID sanely, or as sane as I could possibly be.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'd be in here by myself for 8 hours.
Yeah.
Talking to myself.
And, having something like that, because I've got a Zoom room that I had running for years.
That's where we got the idea from.
I mean, you were in my Zoom room.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where we met, man. And I had it running for years. And, there's good and bad with it, right? If you're not in a Zoom room all day long, you can like be productive because when you're in a Zoom room, here's where I struggled when I was just sitting with you guys in a Zoom room. I am a social butterfly. So if there's people there that I can talk to, I'm going to do it.
I think when I was in your Zoom room, it was so new to me as a daily thing that I don't want to speak for anybody else. I didn't understand how to utilize it. Whereas now, I could be in that Zoom room all day, but for 7 hours, I can be disconnected from audio doing my work. And then, if I want to shoot the shit or I have a question, I can just pop in and say, hey guys, what do you think about this?
And I think back then, none of us really knew how to use it, right? This was...
It was new. It was the final frontier.
It was something. It was the wild...
The TV show puns today.
Oh, boy. So when we were in there, like, for you now, you can be in there, you can be disconnected, but maybe you're just disconnected from audio and maybe you'll leave the video running.
Yeah.
And it's a nice way to keep yourself accountable, because if people see you're at your desk and you're on a phone call, like, it's cool to be like, oh, hey, look, Shiva's busy.
Yeah.
But when you sit there and, pick your nose in front of the camera, that's a little frustrating when you get busted doing that, right? But more importantly, when you're not in the Zoom room, who are you accountable to other than yourself and all your clients? Because you have
I don't think for me, it's not an accountability thing, right? I think motion creates emotion. So if you're doing stuff or you're around other people that are doing stuff, you become better, right? What's the saying? You're the average of the 5 people you're around all day.
That's so true.
And the other thing I do, which is an article I read sometime last year, is I hide self-view in Zoom, because they say apparently subliminally or subconsciously, it raises your stress levels if you watch yourself all day.
I did not hear that. All right.
I'll set up the link and you could probably drop it in the show notes if you wanted to.
Yeah, no, I like that. All right. So the one big downside to having a big Zoom room like that, especially you know, when it's like you and a bunch of other IT guys, and let's just assume we're all peers, right? If it's like a boss and subordinates, I think it would have a different vibe. But when
I think that's the worst thing to do. I think there needs to be separation of church and state between hierarchy of bosses and employees.
Yeah, I'm good with that. But hear me out. When it's just you and a bunch of peers, egos start to get in the way. And, sometimes just being in a Zoom room for 8 hours, just like being in a real room for 8 hours a day, all day, every day, being in the office with other people, there's going to be drama. There's going to be cliques. I mean, just because,
so
I just want to say, like, just because you're in Zoom with people instead of being in an office, you're still going to have all the BS to deal with. In fact, maybe even more, because now there's not physical space separating you.
Well, you can turn it off. I mean, I look at the ego thing as a good thing. If I am surrounded by people who I believe are high achievers and they're doing things and want to make meaningful change for the better of their company, which will have a trickle-down effect to the community at large, I think that's a good thing. Like, I often joke with Brian about him being the world's first and greatest VAM, which is a value-added MSP. But I like the idea. I mean, I think it's funny. Can I curse on this?
Yeah, I can mark it explicit.
Nah, I think it's funny as can be. Let's put it that way, right? The whole VAM thing, it sounds funny. But when you dig into what he's doing with it, I see tremendous value.
Yeah, but isn't it like acronymception? Like, you have an acronym within an acronym.
Yeah, like, so what?
Like, so
I've seen a lot of things in my life, man.
This is where I just, like, I like the idea, Brian. I do. I think what you're pitching makes sense, but it just sounds weird. Like, how deep do we have to go to understand what he's saying to us?
You don't have to. You just got to pay him the money and let him do VAM as a service.
Brian, explain to me, where did this VAM thing come from, man?
So, just kind of, my journey of being an entrepreneur, business owner, and getting slapped in the face with how important it is to consider risk in your business, right? I learned that one the hard way. It really just came down to my entrepreneurial thinking, where I just kind of started looking at my clients differently, pretty much by risk. And I see them in 3 different buckets. Fully managed, I'm completely in the supply chain. Co-managed, I've got like a foot in the supply chain. VAM, VAR, client managed, whatever you want to call it. They don't even want me in the supply chain at that point, typically, right? So what's nice about that is there's little to no risk when you're not in the supply chain. And then you start looking at all the other factors. These types of clients that don't want you in the supply chain don't want you because they don't need you. They have their own internal IT, right? But their internal IT is drowning. I mean, they've been siloed for years. They got hit with COVID. They've been forced into this supporting a work from home, team of employees. They already weren't out into the cloud like they should have been, so they're rushing to get things out to the cloud. They desperately need tools MSPs have been using for years, right, to help automate and make things more efficient. And a lot of these tools are channel only, so naturally they can't buy them direct. So you combine.
Do they need channel only tools though?
It depends. I would say it depends on the case. I mean, there are plenty of enterprise tools out there that I think are much better than channel only tools.
Mm-hmm.
But they also require a certain level of expertise to use properly. Right. And are they going to have that on staff? Like when I'm hiring employees, I would much rather take an engineer that's come from another MSP versus some big corporation where they've been siloed and been working on only XYZ for the past 5 years, right? So they're not as skilled, in my opinion, as an engineer that's been working at an MSP for years. So in some ways, even though they're enterprise, they don't even have the skills to really work with the enterprise products. Right. So that's where some of these channel only, as long as they are focused on enterprise security, a channel only tool, that's where you get it gets a little concerning with some of these channel only tools that are focused on convenience and efficiency first and security second. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of that aspect, right? Where it's like, hey, I'm working with VAM clients. The person I'm working with is an IT department now, not some end user that I'm having to educate on the value of IT and security, right? So the people that we're working with on a day-to-day basis are just easier to work with. They speak the same language, right? I get one VAM client. It equals 10 to 20 fully managed clients from a gross revenue standpoint, right? And probably even better profit when you consider the fact that it's fixed profit, right?
I was going to ask you, I mean, you could probably scale that faster and better than a managed type MSP client because you're essentially a broker.
Yeah.
Buy something, you sell it, and you collect your money, and then next month it comes around, or the year, whatever it is, you're giving yourself the ability to grow and also bring your cost basis down because you get if you're dealing with a company that has internal IT, they're probably 100 user or more, I would assume, for the most part. And, every 100 licenses you buy or a couple hundred licenses you buy, your price goes down significantly. So your profit margins go up.
That's nice when your profit margins go up, especially, like we alluded to earlier with all of this inflation, our tools the prices have gone up, for most MSPs who maybe aren't as good at negotiating or just don't have the negotiating power because they're not purchasing thousands of licenses.
I have a question for you, Steve, and this is something I asked you a few years ago. Because I met you shortly after I came into the MSP space, right? Mm-hmm. And I always asked you, why didn't you create a co-op? Or something like a co-op that takes, I'm just throwing random numbers here without basis, but let's say get 10 MSPs that each have 100 or 200 users under management, and now you're talking about 2,000 licenses.
So I see that in the future of RocketMSP, possibly. Right now, I don't want to add one more thing without knowing that I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to be doing right now really well.
Not necessarily for you. I think, there are many communities or many groups in the MSP community. And I think if each of those groups took a collective bargaining stance with vendors, they could probably get a lot better pricing.
So you're saying partner with some other groups?
I don't know who's doing what. I'm not saying for anyone to do anything, but what I'm saying is if you're a business owner and you are in touch with, 4 or 5 other MSPs and individually your license count doesn't get a sales rep to call you back, maybe you combine and go in at the same time. You have your separate contracts, everything, but you say, hey, if you talk to me, you're actually talking to 5 or 6 other MSPs, and this is what's on the table. You have better bargaining. I think that's more of an education stance as opposed to go create a buying group or something like that.
Have you ever done anything like that?
Yeah.
In fact, it might have been with the people in your Zoom room, right?
Usually. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know that even if you just have a group of MSPs that maybe you just like the owners and you collectively all agree, hey, let's all decide to go buy, I'll just say Datto. When all of you are trying to bargain for a deal all at once, maybe between all of you, you've got 5,000, 10,000, however many thousand licenses, right?
Right, exactly.
But one of the guys might only have 200 or 300.
Yeah.
And what you're doing as a whole is you're bargaining for the best price possible across all of the contracts that you're about to create, which is really going to help the little guy.
And that's the key to this, right? It's also the fact that you're getting separate contracts. I'm not saying go sign a contract with 4 other MSPs to be under one tenant, under one bill, and all that other
got it
fun stuff that'll come along with it. But, make a commitment to the vendor. Say, listen, I'm bringing you 5 people.
Mm-hmm.
We promise that of these 5, whoever comes in, we're all going to sign within a week of each other. And this is the pricing that we want or we're looking for. Because, you might have a guy with 5,000 licenses, but what if the price break comes at 6,000 and the other 4 make that 1,000 or 1,500, whatever the numbers are?
Sure. That makes perfect sense. So, Brian, I don't even know, are we allowed to talk about this? You're a Datto partner, right?
Yes.
So a pillow in the background.
On his, yeah, he's sleeping again, is what you're implying, right?
There's a Datto pillow in the background. Tom, right. Make your screen bigger.
Okay, yeah. I see thirds of people, and it's frustrating. So yeah, it's not your camera. I'm done.
It's Steve.
Yeah, it's me. So with you being a Datto partner, obviously you use all these different Datto products for your business, for your company, and for your clients. But you're also a Datto reseller. Now, we MSPs cannot buy it from you. Sad. But you can sell it. You can resell these products. Like the RMM tool, I think, is kind of what you were alluding to, where you can sell Datto RMM to a business where maybe they're managing a few thousand endpoints. And so they don't need you to do co-managed. They've got a huge team, but they're looking for the right product to help them automate, monitor, remediate, all the stuff, right? And now when they buy that from you, they can go to Datto for support, but that also means that maybe they can work directly with you on some contract basis for, think of all the professional services companies that are out there that provide RMM and PSA consulting services. You're effectively able to do something similar with these VAM clients, right?
Yeah, and that's the idea is, these IT departments, most of them have never even seen a decent RMM, right? Mm. And so it's kind of, think of when RMMs first came out for MSPs and how much MSPs gobbled that up and loved it and called themselves an MSP now that they have an RMM, right? Hey, I've got an RMM. Now I'm an MSP. It's like these IT departments. It's like the first time they've seen such a cool tool and they're just like ecstatic about it. Oh my God, you're saving me so much time, and it's kind of the next frontier. These internal IT departments haven't really leveled up like a lot of MSPs have from the ability to manage a large amount of devices and users efficiently. Right.
What are their favorite uses for RMM?
It's really monitoring, alerting, and then automation of, scripting and updating of software, essentially, is really what it comes down to. And really what's funny is they're getting the pressure from their insurance companies is what's happening. Right. So IT is finally internal IT, who my personal opinion for years has been like, oh, they're like the mechanics, right? They're like, they just keep our computers running. Like that's all we need them for, right? Mm-hmm. They keep our vehicles running, right? It's not like now they're realizing, oh, wait, they're more than just a mechanic. Like we've got valuable information that they're protecting for us, right? Wait, we need to start getting them involved in conversations and ask, like, what are they doing about security, right? And so, that's exactly what it is. We're coming in and we're kind of consulting. I could do this for MSPs. I don't want to, right? But it's taking all of kind of what we've learned and teaching internal IT departments. We're going through with one of our largest co-managed clients and redoing all their help desk processes to more align with how we manage things so they can be more efficient in how they deliver their services. So even process changes, right? Looking at how they're handling things. How do they handle incidents, right? Security incidents. So a lot of that they haven't even thought about. And what's cool is we're there as more of a consulting role. So there's very little ownership in the overall results, which means if a mistake happens or they mess something up, it's not on us, right? It's like, hey, we gave you the guidance. There's very little, we're not in the supply chain. We don't have access to their info. So it's a way for me to make a large impact, take on more gross revenue, deal with larger clients, so less administrative overhead, and minimize risk as I'm growing, right? Because that's the way I look at it. If I take on a fully managed client, that's risk in several areas. Number one, I'm completely in their supply chain. Number two, I got to maintain resources internally to support that client, right?
Makes sense.
I'm happy you brought that up, Brian, because I've seen a certain evolution in the MSP space. And I think the community MSPs are at an inflection point where we went from being the IT support guy or person to being the cybersecurity advisor and all these other things that maybe not everyone was trained to deal with. And by taking on those roles, as you said, you are accepting a whole lot of risk. And, you can try to contract that risk out. But if you're telling them, hey, consider me your in-house IT team, to me, that's assuming a lot of risk as opposed to what I would call a straight time and material job. You need software? I'll sell it to you. You need some consulting hours? I'll sell it to you. That's sold more on an as-is basis. But what do you guys think about MSPs becoming security practitioners? Now, I know it needs to be done, but how do you think it should be done?
Man, this is one where I think I usually am pretty optimistic, but I think this is one of those times where I'm super pessimistic about this because think of all the guys who, like you said, buy an RMM and a PSA, and maybe it's one of those all-in-one deals where, it's got a lot of the like basic features, but it's missing so much, right? And now suddenly they're calling themselves an MSP, but at the end of the day, they're still doing reactive support for most of it because they haven't gone through and, automated a bunch of stuff. Well,
I don't think you have to automate that much anymore. And I know I'm going to catch flack for this, right?
Well, okay. So I'm talking about like the automated remediation. Like, if Brian, you still have a bunch of remediation set up in Datto, right?
Yeah. I mean,
it changes. You're not doing a lot on servers as much as you used to because more and more is going into the cloud. But people still do stupid stuff with their computers or whatever else. And I just look at it as you have to constantly revise what's happening in the RMM to continue to flow and act as an additional couple of employees for you.
Well, I mean, you've got to have tool champions, right, on your team. Someone who's willing to take ownership for that tool and be revisiting it to make sure that you're using it to make sure it's effective and working properly, especially if it's a security tool, right? You can put a security tool in and have a false sense of security thinking, hey, I've got that layer protected now. And little do you know, because no one took ownership on really understanding the tool and implementing it properly, it's not even configured, right? And there's a complete gap wide open.
But as an MSP who's taking on an RMM, let's say for the sake of argument, it's going to be implemented properly, best practices are followed, and take the negativity out of it, right? Let's just say you're doing a really good job. If an MSP is doing a really solid job on the onboarding and there are no local admins on devices for users, and maybe put in a PAM system or a PAM platform, what are you really remediating on a day-to-day basis?
Okay, so your argument makes a lot of sense. But again, this goes back to if there's a bunch of people that are calling themselves MSPs that are not doing it super great. That's where I get hung up.
I think that's an education issue. And I think, like what you're doing here, this is something that's geared for MSPs, is help them understand. And I could be completely wrong here. I'm not saying my way is the way to do anything, right? I'm just a ditch digger. So if you really take your time and go through an onboarding process that really remediates the bad in an environment, your signal to noise ratio is going to be very favorable to you. I mean, Brian, I think you're pretty familiar with my onboarding process. I think I shared it with you, the paragraph. It's maybe a dozen things. And the beautiful thing about the way that's structured in my mind, and again, I'm no expert here, is that I can offer that onboarding SKU to any client without even having a conversation with them, because it hits on everything that needs to be done. I think you need to take a nuke and pave approach. Like when you go in, just get it to zero, take it to where you need it to be, and go from there.
And that's a perfect world, right? That's a client that's willing to rip and replace a certain amount of their infrastructure, right?
I think that really comes down to your sales cycle. One of the things I tell prospective clients is your first 2 weeks with me is going to be miserable. You're going to hate me. You're going to regret hiring me. But I promise you, after those 2 weeks or sooner, you're going to forget I'm even there, except when you have to cut a check to me every month.
But the reality of that, Shiva, is for every 10 leads you get, right? How many of them say
minus
yes
10?
to you? Yeah. I mean, it's like, so for the average MSP who's trying to grow and isn't saying no to as many clients as you are, they don't have that luxury all the time. If I could share my thoughts real quick on where I think the underlying issue is, and it's the fact that ultimately the cybersecurity landscape has moved faster than the education of the people supporting it, right? The average person supporting it did not keep up with it, right? And so you run into a couple situations, one like mine where I feel the brunt, right, of not keeping up. And then I have to quickly pivot and change and get into that, right? I had a major event that caused me to do that, right? In a way, I look at it as a benefit that I had back in the day that forced me to do things that I probably wouldn't have done if that event wouldn't have happened, right? Here's the issue. You've got an existing client base. Cybersecurity landscape's changed. You're behind. How do you go to your client and tell them, hey, we need to increase security, but even I'm not sure what to do yet, right? Let's work together. You're worried about losing that client. You're worried about that client going, oh, well, maybe I need to find someone else that already knows about security. So then the average MSP tries to wing it, right? They're like, oh, I don't want my client to know that I'm behind on security, but I need to make them think that I'm staying up with security. So let me go buy all these tools that make me feel like I'm staying up with security, sell them to my client and get a false sense of security without really understanding what needs to be done, without really understanding what Shiva just explained, where there's a certain approach you could take that's a lot easier, but it takes a level of education to know that approach, right?
I think what you just said is when an IT provider or a company is having what I would call a coming to Jesus moment. You understand your situation. You understand where you need to go. And I think the MSPs that are going to survive the onslaught of ransomware and all these attacks are the ones that are going to tell their clients, listen, we need to do these things. We can do this, this, and this for you, and it will help you. Or they say, we don't know what we're doing. And maybe we need to bring in someone that practices cybersecurity. Leave the support with us, bring in an MSSP. Almost like how doctors have different subspecialties. You have your internal medicine, your cardiologist, and whatever. Maybe that's the way it needs to go. If you can't do it all in-house, I think
that's what I ended up doing. I mean, I went the path thinking I was going to be an MSSP, especially now how hard it is to find good talent. That's the last thing I want to be, right?
Consider the risk, Brian.
Well, that too. I mean, I'm in a situation now where we partner with a SOC, right?
That's because they're actionable.
That we rely on. Like when I have a question about, hey, are we making the right move with security or even a new tool? Like I've got this process now where it's like, hey, if we're going to use this new tool, let's run it by our SOC. Let's see what they think about the tool. Let's see if they if they can do some sort of red team on it for us, right?
You chose a good SOC. And
yeah.
I know one of your favorite words for them is that they're actionable, which they are. But I think that makes the biggest difference, right?
Yeah.
You can lean on them and they have red team things for you and shown you maybe where you should or shouldn't invest your resources.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a SOC that's willing to take ownership, right? Put themselves in your shoes and be like, hey, this is what we would do if we were you. Versus some random, security engineer that's just fielding support calls, right?
So when I want to phrase this that way I make sure I'm clear. So when it comes to security, where should these MSPs that are maybe just a little behind, where should they look?
You mind if I take a shot at this one?
Yeah.
I think the MSP, the traditional MSP who's been focused on support, helping clients, should focus on good antivirus selection, good email protection, and really hone their best practices of a Azure AD tenant and an Active Directory tenant in terms of privileged access. And I think to a certain degree, that's where the vast majority of the MSPs should stay.
No local admin.
No local admin, but I think once you get into the EDR side of things, EDR is a really fantastic spending exercise for nothing because a lot of people who buy it do nothing with it. They just think they're going to get this protection. But
so they think they're getting enhanced protection.
Right, but they're just getting better logging, right? On their endpoints.
Right. But I think what happens is, when we see EDR and MTR and all of these things, like I know that they're different things. I know they're different things. But I think that there's a little bit of disillusionment when it comes to what people are going to get from their tools. Hell, I did it for years, man. I kept switching my RMM or my PSA because
you were doing market research for RocketMSP.
That's exactly what I was doing. No, but years before RocketMSP was a thing, like I was an idiot. I just kept switching tools thinking like, oh, well, if I switch to this one, they're going to have all this stuff already set up and taken care of. Why would they do my job for me?
I think that's a lot of that is how they market their tools. And the one thing I forgot to say with at least my view on MSPs and cybersecurity, I think an MSP can skip the EDR part if they're going to an MTR type platform. Blackpoint has a fantastic platform. Sophos has a good platform. And some of the other guys, SentinelOne has Vigilance. Where if you're going to those platforms, then yes, you use their EDR. So they can collect the data and they can, as Brian would say, become actionable. But I think when an MSP tries to say that they're going to monitor all the logs, that's a heavy lift.
Yeah, we don't even offer EDR. It's just MDR, right? Because otherwise you're just creating more noise that
but
now
that's
you're
packaged with your MDR offering. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
EDR, all you're doing is creating more noise that you're beholden to fixing, really. Yep. I mean, it's turning up evidence where if an incident happens and you don't react properly, there's better evidence that you didn't react properly.
And the risk is yours.
Yeah. So I think if we're going to keep it basics on security for MSPs, I'll answer it two ways. One way is like no local admin, MFA, good email security product, good antivirus, and MDR. Like that Kaseya event that happened last year, I immediately sent out quotes to all my clients saying, hey, the majority of these events happen after hours. We are not a 24/7 security company. This 24/7 SOC MDR service can be that, right? We need this to know what's going on outside normal business hours, even during business hours, really.
That takes a lot of courage to do. I don't know many people that would put themselves across the sword and say, listen, we can't do this. This is not our thing. It's not our cup of coffee, but hey, here's a service you can use.
And that's the problem I see in the industry and why I can agree with Steve being pessimistic about MSPs getting into security, right? Is because they're not willing to admit what they do and don't know because they're afraid of losing a client, right? I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
That, and there's always a race to the bottom price-wise. There's always going to be someone who will take the job for a factor of X less than you and do a piss poor job. And you know what? There are instances where they charge more and still do a piss poor job.
Mm. All right. I want to change gears a little bit. I want to talk about something that's been really impacting me, because I'm a worrier. Let's talk about this. I'm gonna call it what I think it is: the war in Ukraine. Now, I don't want to talk about how big of an asshole Putin is, or any of that stuff. Who's right? Who's wrong? What they should do. That's not what this podcast is about. What I want to talk about is, what do you think? And this is speculation. What do you think this is going to do to not only our really, Kat, to not only our security around the U.S., but to everything? Like, I feel like some of this inflation that we're having right now is definitely caused by this conflict. Gas prices and whatnot. What do you guys think is going to be the real outcome here?
Outcome? I mean, I would, ever since I got hit by the ransomware event, I've been a strong proponent of, we are in an information war, right? And I feel like the war in Ukraine's only heightened that, because when you've got conflict, you've got different ways to battle that conflict, right? You could go with physical war, which really isn't too popular, right? Or you can go with cybersecurity warfare. The tricky thing about cybersecurity warfare is it's not necessarily the government versus the government. In a lot of cases, it's civilians versus civilians. Right.
And that's the part that's making me nervous. Like, have you guys seen anything? Any uptick?
I've seen an uptick, but one thing I've noticed is a lot less critical infrastructure is being hit. I think after JBS and after Colonial, the ransomware groups understood that there will be government involvement if you go after that. So I think if you look at some of the automotive hacks and some of the other incidents in the last 2 months even, the supply chain of critical infrastructure is being hit. And I think that could be more damaging because that will raise prices and inflation to points that are not sustainable. And I think we're just in a time where cyber warfare is unrestricted warfare.
And one thing I want to add, my tinfoil hat is on right now. Part of me wonders, like, how much of this is staged? Okay, hear me out. Okay,
I'm not. That's way above my pay grade. I mean,
hear me out though. Like, there's the arguments where, supposedly Will Smith slapping the shit out of Chris Rock, supposedly that was staged. I don't think it was, because the way Chris Rock reacted to that is, I think, how I've reacted to when some people have come on my podcast and just flipped the table on me.
What episode was that?
Several. I think you were on it. Yeah.
Oops.
I don't think it was you. I think it was others. So, but how much of this, like, is this like some secret cabal's way of getting everyone to stop worrying about COVID because now we're worried about Ukraine? Because I think it's doing a good job.
I don't know if it's that, but I will say there's always going to be something.
There is. And just like we said earlier with the Zoom rooms, like, there's always something.
Yeah, it is what it is kind of thing, right? It's you, as a IT person, I do the best that I can to educate my customers and protect them to the ability that I can. And if I can't, I outsource it. I don't sit here saying, hey, I'm going to go buy a SIM, collect logs, and do the threat hunting that not 1,000, but like 10 other companies can do really, really well.
So I'm gonna get a little philosophizing.
Is this still early, Brian?
Do we need red caps?
We need red caps.
Philosophical.
That's the word I was looking for. Really, I think any organization, no matter what it is, nonprofit, government, private, public, you get too big, there's always a percentage of corruption in any organization. And the bigger you are, while that percent might stay the same, it equals more corruption, right? And so I think really what it comes down to is we need to get back to like decentralizing things. We need new sources of truth for things, right?
We kids and your sources of truth.
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. We don't really have valid sources of truth anymore, right? It's like you got to question everything you read now and determine
there's a lot of confirmation bias out there, I think. I mean, anyone can do anything that justifies their viewpoint, and that's what happens when information and knowledge is not gated the way it used to be, right? But even back then, that was still controlling the narrative, I think, is what you're getting at.
Yeah.
Listen,
so like decentralized internet is supposed to be the next big thing, right? Where you've got a track record and you can go back and prove whether or not something's true or not, right? Things just can't be changed. I think blockchain is going to help with that. Right?
Going to make Wikipedia read only?
That vulnerability they found with Ethereum a couple months ago where you can mint your own unlimited Ethereum.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, it was maybe 2 months ago. I mean, how
did I miss out on that?
People are talking about the blockchain as though it's the end all be all of security. But dude, if it was made by man, it can be undone by man. Or
anything that can be
basement in the UK.
Anything that can be locked can be unlocked.
Right.
However, if you've got a good enough audit trail, you can at least figure out who unlocked it, right?
If you find it, right? I mean, there's a crypto platform that lost, what was it, 600 million in the last, I think it was in the news a couple days ago. And the platform didn't know there was a breach or a theft they only found out because a user went into their wallet and tried to withdraw and funds weren't there. You would hope a crypto platform would have better auditing.
Yeah.
So it boils down to people putting more emphasis, I think, on security than features. But security doesn't sell, unfortunately.
It does in the VAM space.
Well, I think it does to an informed consumer, right?
Yeah.
Like you're gonna, for every VAM client that you bring on board, I would say it's at least a 2-to-1 ratio of companies saying, "Nah, we're not going to spend that kind of money because insurance will take care of it," or they feel there are other ways that it can be mitigated.
No.
So let's talk about scale. When you guys started your companies, it was just you, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I want to learn from you guys, because how many employees do you have, Shiva?
6.
Brian, how many
We're
employees
small.
do you have?
11.
Okay.
I was at 25 at one point in time.
And that's okay. The point is, it's more than just you, right? So in order for your business to grow, you can't be the one doing all the things. You need to start letting go of some responsibilities and delegating that stuff to others. But you have to have others to delegate it to. And if I just go hire a tech so I can stop answering phones or whatever that looks like, right? If I just go hire a person, they need to have a job to do. So like what comes first? The documentation, the role that you want them to do, or the person?
Are we talking hypothetical kumbaya here, or the realistic
what
answer and expectation?
What have you found, like after your years of trial and error, what have you found as the right way for you to be able to scale?
I started as a VAR. So for me, it was finding the client and then hiring contractors to sub out to them. So I had the talent piece covered. But I think if you're a one-man MSP, I think you should probably figure out what your core competency is. Is it being the tech, or is it being the operational person? And when you figure out which of those two things you are, hire the other one.
Mm-hmm.
And the only thing I would tell people, that if you're a one-man band or a one-man shop, create an email address or an alias for every department in your business. This way, when you start shedding responsibility, that it's not your email address on everything. It's, if it's accounts payable, it's say ap@domain.com.
That is fantastic advice. What about you, Brian?
So I look at it as kind of stages. There's of stickiness, stages of stickiness. I mean, when you start out as a one-man band, you're doing everything, including the sales. And if you get to a point where you can start hiring people, typically that means you're not too bad at sales, right? I question small MSPs that hire salespeople. I don't feel like a random salesperson even knows how to sell MSP services. So that would probably be one of the last roles I would recommend hiring as an owner of an MSP, assuming you like sales and can do it. But really, the two levels of stickiness I see are stickiness with your clients, stickiness with your team. And those are the two that I got past that I never want to go back to again. And the idea is the clients don't feel like they need you involved in everything, right? It's not a situation where the minute they feel like things aren't going the way they think they should, they want to bring you in all of a sudden, right? Oh, let's get Brian involved in this, to make sure it's happening correctly. Getting past that, right? Getting your clients to trust a team of people. is like goal number one. And so if you're the tech all the time, that's going to be harder to remove the stickiness, right? So that's another thing you shouldn't hang on to forever as an owner, is being the tech.
What if you're better at being a tech than you are at being operations or sales?
Maybe you should start a business.
Well, still, then
I think that's the thing. You can hire that. I think you find out what you are and hire out the other parts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I would even say when you're that small, outsource, don't hire internally, because the minute you hire internally, you have to manage that employee and make sure they're meeting their goals and expectations. And that takes time. So, like Osprey is a company I know, that will literally, manage a salesperson for you. If you wanted to go that route, you hire a salesperson, they help you find a salesperson, and then they manage it for you. All the expectations, like the salesperson answers to them, and then you pay them an outsourced fee to do that. Right.
So it's almost like a temp agency.
Yep.
Salesperson as a service.
And I'm even a fan of outsourced help desk, when you're really small, because you need to have a quick response, right? You can't, if you're one man and you get too many calls at once, you need someone there to back you up. So
the thing about that is I've seen outsourced help desk bite MSPs in the tail end. And I think it's for one of two reasons. Reason number one, documentation and SOPs on the MSP side of things is extremely lacking. And when that's lacking, then the outsourced people don't really have here's how to do things. And then number two, I've actually seen where, the outsourced company, they've got like they've got their method, maybe they've got a dispatcher that answers the phone, and then from there it gets pushed out to a tech. And sometimes it's a call back, sometimes it's the same call, however that looks, right? However, when the client reaches out to you, especially when you're small, and maybe you're just working out of, home, and you don't have to go anywhere. So you're just, you're just sitting around at your desk working on whatever, scrolling Facebook, and a call comes in. You answer it immediately, and you just start working the problem. And when you do that, you're missing a few steps. You're not creating the ticket and doing all the things that one of these outsourced companies are doing. And what you're doing is you're actually setting yourself up for customer dissatisfaction down the road, because when you start adding some of these necessary, things that add a little extra time, the customers that you've kept along the way are going to see this as a negative, because now it takes longer for service to start.
Well, how much longer is it going to take? Even if you don't want to create the ticket right then and there, keep a notepad on your desk and write your start time, what you're doing in shorthand form. Then you can go back and create the ticket.
You operate out of New York. You know what people are like around there.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like
and that works great for you. But when you start outsourcing, like let's say you outsource to Benchmark 365 or Mission Control or one of these other places, right? Like they have an SOP they have to follow. So
why would my opinion on this is, why would I outsource my help desk if I'm putting the time in on the onboarding and the tool selection? Because if I'm not having to remediate much of anything, what do I need to outsource for?
Well, it goes to setting the expectations, right? And that's what you're talking about, Shiva, right there, is you've set the expectations up front that to work with me, these things have to change, right?
Right.
And then that creates a situation where there's less help desk needs down the road, right? I think to Steve's point, setting the expectation with the client that they don't just call up and get service right away. And that's a shift we made beginning of last year, where we set the expectation with our clients now where if you call us, you're not going to get immediate support. The only thing that's going to happen when you call us is we're going to create your ticket for you. And how we're going to create your ticket is the same way you could create it on your own. We're going to go to the client portal, impersonate you, ask you all the same questions on the form, fill it out, submit a ticket. Because
I love that.
We can't guarantee that the right skilled resource is going to be the one to pick up the phone to help you with your issue. And we don't want the wrong skilled person to feel like they need to be the one to help you just because they're the one who picked up the phone. And then all of a sudden that turns into something down the road that's a bigger issue we got to deal with. So the step is get the request in, understand what the request is, triage it to the right skilled technician. If it is an emergency, we'll get back to you right away, right? But it isn't a situation where when you have an emergency, you call up and get immediate support. It's always create the ticket first. And our mantra is, if it's not in a ticket, it doesn't exist. So like you email one of our engineers directly and that falls through the cracks, you can't get mad at us. That was your fault, right? So you set, so to your point, Steve, SOPs, and to your point, Shiva, setting expectation of this is how we operate. If you don't follow this, you're not going to get a good quality of service. You're going to be frustrated. And that's not on us. That's on you because you're not following how we operate to be able to give you that good service. Right?
Oh,
no, I agree. I mean, but that's on the MSP to create that process too.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've all been in situations where we've either been taken out by another MSP or we've taken out other MSPs to go for a client. And I know I've probably learned more from losing a client based on their exit process than that has helped me in the long run.
Well, and the other issue you have is you have the smaller MSPs that look at what I just explained as a negative. And they might go in and say, oh, when you call us, we'll pick up the phone and help you right away. You don't have to create a ticket and wait for someone to call you back. So if they're doing that, then they're setting the expectations the opposite. Now they're making those clients extra sticky
but
to where they have
scale,
to,
right?
Well, it's not scalable. Exactly. So to Steve's point, there's MSPs out there shooting themselves in the foot with something that they feel is a value add that really prevents them from scaling.
So I have one final question I'm going to ask, and then we're actually going to record a members only thing about pricing. So I have one final question. I'm going to start with Brian. What is one thing that your company is doing for clients that you didn't expect?
Dealing with their cybersecurity insurance forms as much as we are. I don't know. I mean, that's always a dance for us, right? Because we don't want to fill out the form for them, because then you're like taking on liability, But I guess that's the area where it's like every time that comes up, I send it across my desk to make sure it gets handled properly. Because I feel like we don't have a process in place where I could depend on my team making sure that it gets handled properly every time.
Shiva?
We write a memo. We never fill out the form for them because we don't want them just turning it around.
Yep.
We write a memo on letterhead referencing the form, and it says, this is to the best of our knowledge and based on services we provide. And if there's a question on the form that we either don't know the answer to or we don't provide, we state that on there. But where we do answer in the affirmative, we provide the backing up controls or information needed.
Yeah, the whole compliance side of things, right? That's new, and we've decided not to get into that. I mean, we'll map to controls. We'll do our own internal risk assessment. But if we're the ones providing security, we don't want to always also be the ones telling the client they're secure. So if they want a green check mark, that they're compliant or that they're meeting some set of controls, we tell them, here's our self-assessment, but this isn't a green check mark. A green check mark is going to be done by a third party that comes in and verifies everything.
You're going to pay an auditor.
Yeah.
I like that.
A lot of money. And have you considered opening a third-party auditing company that you refer all your,
They actually have rules in CMMC built in that you can't do that. They don't.
Which version? Because version 1 was a cluster.
Yeah.
With the the assessment.
And the newest version. Yeah. The first version, it's like you could do it all.
Yeah. You could have a member of the CMMC council open their own assessor and come and assess you, get paid.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So Shiva, how about you? What is one thing that your company is doing for clients that you didn't expect?
I don't know. I think my mindset with managed services has always been, if you're going to do it, charge a premium for the girlfriend experience. So
inappropriate.
There's not much that we won't do for our clients that's in our scope. Like, if we need to show up at 5 a.m., we'll do it. And we're not going to, if they're a fully managed customer, we're not going to bill them for it, because that's why they're paying X dollars per user per month. Now,
I like that. I like that a lot. I don't know that I'd call it the same thing, but I like it.
I'm gonna add to something kind of off of what Shiva said, but something I didn't realize we'd be doing is literally firing clients. And I heard the best thing. I think Robin Robbins said it, right? If I'm laying in bed at night thinking about you and we're not sleeping together, that's a problem. Right? And so if I've got a client I'm laying in bed at night worried about, then that's a problem. That we need to get rid of that. So, it's that idea too, right? It's like, be selective with your clients. Shiva is already doing that just with his requirements up front, right? It's like, hey, I know I need a client that's going to understand the value in IT and security. And I know that if I require this up front, that's going to weed out all the ones that don't, right?
I will say that my close rate is probably 1 out of 100 on new clients for fully managed. And it may not be that bad, but it's close, because it's a hard pill to swallow for someone to come in and say they want full control. Not a lot of companies are willing to give that up, much less pay for it.
Well, thank you guys for popping on here. I really appreciate it. Brian Weiss with iTech Solutions. Shiva with Continuum. I know your last name. I just wanted to be funny. If anyone has questions for them, go check out their websites. continuumwithak.com, right?
Yeah.
And then Brian's is itechsolutions.com, if I recall.
itech-solutions.com, number one VAM.
Do you own number1vam.com yet?
I should, huh?
By the end of this podcast, you should.
Yeah, because I assure you, I'm going to go register it right now. And I'll sell it to you for a real low price. And it'll be in perpetuity monthly.
That's wonderful.
I learned that from Shiva.
One thing I would say, and I don't know, maybe you can cut this out and put it into the paid only version, is start doing 1-year contracts with your clients. With the way things are changing, inflation, tooling cost, give yourself that opportunity to renegotiate at the end of the year. And you know what? That might not be a client you want for 3 years.
Really may not. Clients are weird, man.
Leadership change is a change.